Hello. This meeting of the Committee on Appropriations is called to order. May I request everybody to please rise for the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupit, di ka masisingil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baka, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagtitigil. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan papay di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng buwan ng aming konsepta, buhay ay langit sa ko. Aming ligaya dapat may mga aking at namatay ng dahil sa'yo.
May I also request Congresswoman Jam Baronda of the City of Iloilo to lead us in her prayer.
Let us bow our heads and acknowledge the presence of the Lord. Heavenly Father, look gently on the people gathered today. Guide our thoughts so that we may arrive with our fair decisions and sound judgment for the good of the people in tackling the national budget. We are grateful for all the blessings you have given us. We pray for those who are struggling, and we humbly ask that you bestowed upon them your grace. Lord, grant us the strength to continue serving despite the many hardships and challenges we face. We pray that you enlighten us and be with us as we strive to do your will. This we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, thank you very much, Representative Baronda. COMSEC, can you please acknowledge the members and resource persons attending the hearing today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. May we acknowledge the officials of the House of Representatives who are present via Zoom and physically at the plenary hall. First is Vice Chair Manix Dalipe, Deputy Majority Leader Jam Baronda, and Representative Keith Belmonte. And via Zoom, Deputy Speaker Rosemary Baby Arenas, Deputy Speaker Henry Oaminal, Deputy Speaker Diogracias Victor Savellano, Vice Chair Lorna Bandigan, Vice Chair Junicua, Vice Chair Luisa Loren Cuaresma, Representative Cheryl Deloso Montalia, Representative Abdullah Dimaporo, Representative Jocelyn Fortuno, Representative Arnie Fuentebella, Representative Maria Lucille Nava, Representative Janice Salimbangon, Representative Diego T., Representative Rosana Ria Vergara, Representative Sherlyn Banas Nograles, Representative Edgar Chato, Representative Mark Go, Representative Aloy Lim, Representative Macnel Losotan, Representative Rodolfo Ordanes, Representative Florida Roves, Representative Irene Gay Saulog, Representative Rowena Nina Taduran, Representative Jocelyn Tulpo, Representative Carl Cari, Representative Lorna Silverio, Representative Jonathan Flores, Representative Alfel Bascug, Deputy Speaker Divina Grace Yu, Representative Fernando Cabredo, Representative Apple Pancho, Representative VG Laxson, Representative Rico Heron, Representative Narciso Bravo, Representative Ron Salo, Representative Joy Tambunting, and Representative Dong Gonzalez. And from the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, present at the plenary, may we acknowledge Ricardo Faraon, Vice President, Attorney Arnold Ferdinand Salvosa, Ramon Villaforon, Dr. Larry Cedro, OIC General Manager, Arnel Casas, Assistant General Manager, Julieta Aseo, Cristina Gregorio, Attorney Annalisa Insiong, Agnes Ibera, and via Zoom, Chairperson Anselmo Simeon Pinili, Attorney Lauro Patiag, Assistant General Manager, Remilisa Gabuyo, Attorney John Derek Porciuncula, Attorney Marisa Medrano, Attorney Raymond Samarita, Sharon Marasigan, and Attorney Gay Nadine Alvor. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Comsec. Good morning to our colleagues in the Committee on Appropriations who are present in the Zoom platform, as well to the HREP Secretariat who reported to work today even if it is a Friday. On behalf of the Committee on Appropriations, led by our Chairman, Eric Goyap, I would like to thank the honorable members of Congress who are joining us today for the budget briefing and discussion on sources of financing relative to the proposed 5.024 trillion pesos national budget for financial year 2022. This is the last annual budget under the administration of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, and the Committee on Appropriations shares with the call of our Speaker, Lord Alan Velasco, to ensure the smooth passage of the 2022 national budget, which is focused on the funding of programs, projects, and activities towards full economic recovery against the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we will have the briefing from two agencies. This morning, we'll start with the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, and later this afternoon with the PAGCOR family. The committee would like to welcome PCSO officials here today, and thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank also Congresswoman Jam Baronda for joining me here in this hearing. So we'll start with the budget presentation. The chair would like to give the floor to present from the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office. The chair would like to recognize Dr. Larry R. Cedro, the officer in charge, general manager, and assistant GM for gaming and product development and marketing sector.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here. For and in behalf of our General Manager, Regina Marsan Garma, who's on official leave today, Mr. Chairman, I would like to defer to our Chairman, Chairman Anselmo Pinili, for the opening statement, sir. Thank you.
The chair would like to recognize Chairperson Anselmo Simeon Pinili for the opening statement. The chair would like to recognize Chairperson of PCSO, Anselmo Simeon Pinili. Comsec, can you please check our connection at Zoom? If Chair Pinili is already online to give his opening statement for and behalf of the Philippine Charity and Sweepstakes Office.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm now unmuted to the Honorable Chairperson, Eric Goyap, the esteemed officers and members of the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations, to our fellow servants in the government, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are thankful for the invitation to be able to provide data on the revenues, taxes, dividends, mandatory contributions, and highlights of the operational expenses for officials and employees of PCSO that will assist this august body of legislators in effectively carrying out its jurisdiction on the expenditures of national government, particularly its GOCCs. Alongside the rest of the world, our country has been going through tough times from the onset of the coronavirus 19 pandemic. We have surely seen hard times in the past, but the impact of the current crisis is truly felt in both large and small scales of our economy. We all experience it daily and personally. Nevertheless, the pandemic has also opened critical opportunities of learning for us who serve in the government. For PCSO, the critical need to prioritize digital transformation and leveling up of our gains to online platforms was highlighted during the period of community quarantine and risk of intermittent lockdowns. This is to ensure that we are able to continue our mandate of generating revenues for the provision of funds for medical assistance to our countrymen. PCSO attributes the previous increase of sales from 2016 to its peak in 2018 to the highest jackpot reached at almost 1.2 billion that year. With the effectivity of the train law that required 20% documentary stamp tax on lotto, 20% final tax on winnings, corporate tax, the increase in the price of tickets, the suspension of all PCSO games in 2019, and the declaration of public health emergency due to the pandemic in early 2020, PCSO saw a sustained decline in its sales. We hope that the presentation of PCSO's financial performance today will be able to help this honorable committee in analyzing how PCSO's role in the national government can be made more effective in the relation to the provisions of our charter and the existing law of our taxes. The rationalization of the tax treatment on PCSO sales together with our efforts toward online betting platforms, other push marketing strategy through a mobile point of sales terminals and the introduction of new games will surely work hand in hand as soon as implemented. With Congress guidance and support on needed amendments to the PCSO Charter, we are positive that PCSO service will continue to help alleviate and improve the Filipino lives, especially during these challenging times. As our President said, in 2020, tayo ay magkaisa. Together as one nation, this challenge can be overcome. To end, follow me also to introduce the team PCSO who are authorized to speak and explain on technical matters related to PCSO's financial performance. As already mentioned, our OIC General Manager, AGM Larry Cedro, our Assistant General Managers, AGM Arnel Casas, AGM Laurie Patsyag, AGM Remilisa Gaboyo, AGM Julieta Aseo, our Legal Department, Attorney Dec Porcioncola, and our Legislative Liaison, Attorney Gay Albor. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Anselmo Simeon Pinili. The Chair would like
Thank you,
to next to give PCSO to present their accomplishments for the current year and the previous years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To present PCSO's programs, performance, and financial highlights, Mr. Chairman, allow me to introduce our Legislative Liaison Officer, Attorney Alvor to present the same, sir, supported by the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, please proceed. Can we have the presentation on screen?
Mr. Chairman, I think our legislative liaison officer is muted. May we request assistance from the committee secretariat? Thank you.
Comsec, can you please check the connection of Attorney Albor, the Legislative Liaison Officer of PCSO? I think the good attorneys already linked in Zoom, and please allow for the Legislative Liaison Officer to present on screen the accomplishments of PCSO.
Good
Tor-
morning, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
yes, Attorney Albor, please proceed.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, due to technical difficulties, may I request the committee secretary to please show on the screen the PowerPoint slide?
Comsec, please present the PowerPoint slide of Attorney Albor.
The slide was transmitted via email last night, Mr. Chair, with your permission. Thank you, sir.
The committee technical staff, can you check on the PowerPoint presentation which was emailed? Okay. Can you make
With your
it?
permission, Mr. Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, please proceed, Attorney Albor.
Thank you, sir. For and on behalf of the PCSO Board of Directors and our General Managers, good morning, everybody. I am Attorney Gay Alvor. I am the Legislative Liaison Officer of the agency, and I've been tasked to walk through the committee with our revenue performance for the past 5 years. Next slide, please. So, Mr. Chair, we have here a report on the revenue performance or ticket sales of our games for the year 2019-2020 and for first semester of 2021. As you can see, there is a big difference in our revenue performance for the year 2020 as compared to 2019, and this is due to the lockdowns in 2022, which lasted for more than 6 months. And by reason of this, PCSO was prevented from selling tickets nationwide with 5.5 months ECQ in 2020. Now, for calendar year 2021, our revenues was also affected in the first semester due to the ECQ and varying degrees of lockdowns all over the country, specifically the ECQ in the NCR Plus bubble, lasting from March until April 2021. Next slide, please. So we will walk you through the revenue performance of the agency for the past 3 years. So in 2029, originally, Mr. Chair, our revenue target or forecast ticket sales was 67 billion. However, by December 31, 2019, actual ticket sales was only 44. And the reason for this was the instruction of the president to suspend all gaming operations of the PCSO um, in 2019, and then it took some time before all our gaming operations were activated. Calibrated po yung pag-resume ng aming gamings noong 2019, and the last one to resume was STL. On top of this, in 2019, Mr. Chair, PCSO adopted the instructions from the train law, wherein our documentary stamp tax was increased 10 to 20%. And this has an effect on our sales, with PCSO forced to pass on to our bettors the DST increase from 10% to 20%, so as to protect our charity fund, which is already saddled by so many mandatory contributions. On top of this, PCSO was also transitioning for compliance with the Universal Healthcare Act, which mandates that the net 40% of our charity fund, after deducting documentary stamp tax and mandatory contributions, shall be earmarked for the Universal Healthcare Act. So for 2020, as stated by our chairperson, our sales was adversely affected by almost 5.5 months of suspension in selling due to enhanced community quarantine and subsequent varying degrees of lockdowns in LGUs all over the country. Our original target before the pandemic, Mr. Chair, was 46 billion. However, before the end of the year, PCSO requested the GCG to recalibrate its original forecast corporate operating budget. And by December 31, 2020, the agency was able to raise 18.6 billion pesos. And then for calendar year 2021, our target po is 46 billion. As of June 30, 2021, Mr. Chair, we were able to raise approximately 19 billion. So this is way below our target, and we attribute this to almost 2.5 months enhanced community quarantine, which was approved by the President last March, and it lasted until April and the first week of May. So next slide po. Next slide, please. So, Mr. Chair, let me walk through the committee with our charity fund utilization. Just to apprise our viewers and Congress, let's take for example that you will bet 100 pesos worth of lotto tickets. So yung taya po isang bawasan muna ng 2 piso or 2% para ma-reach natin yung net retail. At yung net retail receipt po, dinidivide yan sa 3 pondo, yung prize fund, charity fund, at saka observe fund po natin yan. Hindi yan natin ginagalaw o basta-bastang pinamimigay kasi intended po yan sa ating mga winners. So, ang susunod naman po, yung ating operating fund. Doon naman po kinukuha yung mga gastusin para sa pang-araw-araw na gastusin ng ahensya para ma-implement at ma-hold and conduct ang aming gaming operation. So, ang pinaka-importante po nating dapat tutukan ay yung ating charity fund. Bakit? Dahil ito po ang special fund ng PCSO kung saan kinukuha po natin ang pabili ng ating mga ambulansyang pinamimigay sa iba't ibang LGUs, Dito rin po kinukuha yung hospitalization assistance natin, donation of equipment, medicines, and other institutional charity programs, and our mandatory contributions. So in the last years of the administration of President Duterte, we have two major laws, or three in fact, that have a big impact on the charity fund utilization. Number one is the train law. Under po sa train law, in-increase po ang ating documentary stamp tax from 10% to 20%. On top of that, subject to corporate income tax na rin po ang PCSO, at yung mga jackpot prizes natin or winnings natin, 10,000 and above po ay already subject to passive income tax o windfall tax of 20%. So dumami po ang mga taxes na binabayaran ng PCSO. In the last 2 or 3 years po, na-aprubahan din po ang Universal Healthcare Act or RA 11 123. Under po sa batas na ito, nagsasabi siya na ang buong charity fund daw po, ibabawas muna yung gastusin para sa documentary stamp tax sa 20% at lahat ng mandatory contribution. Kung ano po ang matitira doon, 40% po nun ay ibibigay sa PhilHealth. Pero hindi pa po namin binibigay ng buo yung buong 40% sa PhilHealth dahil recently lang po nag-agree ang DOH, PAGCOR, PCSO, DBM kung kanino ibibigay yung share ng PCSO sa ating Universal Healthcare Act. So under din po sa Universal Healthcare Act, sa unang 2 taon, counted from the time na mag-remit ang PCSO, which we plan to do this month or next month po, 50% ng kabuang 40% ay i-retain po muna ng PCSO para mabayaran po namin lahat ng utang namin sa mga ospital. Ito po yung ating medical assistance program kung saan po pumupunta po ang ating mga kababayan na may sakit sa lahat ng opisina ng PCSO para humingi po ng additional na tulong, no, after ibawas yung PhilHealth case rate. So kung may natitira pa pong mga gastusin sa ospital, yung karamihan po sa ating mga kababayan na financially challenged ay tumatakbo po sa PCSO. And the most recent is the Malasakit Centers Act or RA 11146. Ito naman po Malasakit Centers Act ay isang one-stop shop mechanism wherein lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno ay pinagsama-sama sa isang lugar. Ito pa yung mga government hospital para isang lugar lang po ang pupuntahan ng mga kababayan natin para humingi ng tulong sa kanilang hospitalization and medical assistance. And as of last week po, Mr. Chair, PCSO is supporting 123 malasakit centers. So kung titingnan po natin itong ating slide, makikita po ninyo na napakalaki po ng portion ng ating charity fund ang napupunta sa 20% documentary stamp tax. Ito po yung dahilan kung bakit yung aming pong chairman kanina ay nagsabing sana po tulungan kami ng Kongreso na ma-rationalize po itong aming documentary stamp tax. Sana po ibalik kahit man lang po sa dati niyang rate na 10% instead of 20%. And we are appealing na sana po i-consider ito ng Kongreso kasi lumalawak po yung ating malasakit centers, pati yung pangangailangan ng funding ng Universal Healthcare Act. Pero napakarami pa rin pong mandatory contributions ng PCSO. Halimbawa po, nagbibigay po kami sa CHED, Philippine Sports Commission, PIDEA, and some of these mandatory contributions, Mr. Chair, are not even health-related. these special laws have been enacted way before the current Congress. And so we appeal to the current Congress to kindly take time po sana na i-review natin yung ating mandatory contributions. Sa amin pong experience, sa response po namin sa COVID-19, the Office of the President instructed PCSO to focus its scarce resources to providing hospitalization and medical assistance for non-COVID-related diseases. And ano po ba ito? Ito po yung mga dialysis, mga chemo, hospitalization assistance, mga request po for surgery, and the request for assisted devices. Masyado na po tayong nag-focus sa COVID, pero sa report po ng NEDA lumalabas na hindi po COVID ang number one cause ng ating mortality. Nandiyan pa rin po yung mga common illnesses, no? Yung mga sakit sa puso, diabetes, cancer, etc. So, eto po sana yung gustong tutukan ng PCSO. At hindi po kami makagalaw because nag-confluence na po, nagsama-sama na po yung iba't ibang batas na rini-require ang PCSO na magbigay ang pondo. Dahil po dito, in the last 5 years, the PCSO requested the GCG to approve our financial roadmap. So we have more or less 17 special laws requiring PCSO funding support. Hindi po kakayanin ng PCSO na suportahan kada taon lahat ng special laws na to. So ano po ang ginawa ng PCSO? Kada taon po may nakaschedule po kung sino po yung bibigyan ng share sa aming mandatory contributions. So siguro po ang pinaka-common na alam ng ating mga kasamahan sa Kongreso na binibigay ng PCSO ay yung mga ambulansya po namin, medical equipment at itong pong medical assistance program. Next slide po. Hello? Next slide please. Okay. So, paki-press pa po para lumabas yung ibang content ng slide. Sige po, para mabuo po yung slide. So, Mr. Chair, may I please walk you through our fiscal year 2021 financial highlights? And can we go back to the other slide po? Sa financial highlights muna. Okay. So, for the first semester, Mr. Chairman, ito po ang ating performance, no? So, ulitin ko po, kung antayan nyo 100, ibabawas muna natin yung 2 piso or 2%, na-compute po natin yung 55% prize fund, 15% operating fund, at 30% charity fund. So, ang target po namin for this year ay 46 billion. Nabanggit ko na po kanina na for first semester po, ang aming pong actual ticket sales as of June 30 ay only 19 billion. So, meron pong sales shortfall, no? And we attribute this to the ECQ during the March and April, wherein hindi po kami talaga makagalaw. Hindi po kami makapagbenta, lalong-lalo na po dito sa NCR Plus Bubble, which will include the National Capital Region, Region 4A, and Region 3. Dito po sa mga lugar na to, ang pinakamataas na number ng lotto bettors at sa kanila po nang gagaling yung malaking portion ng aming revenue. So, dito naman po sa baba, makikita natin kung paano po inallocate yung gross ticket sales namin. So, after pong ibawas yung 2% printing cost, ito na po yung ating breakdown ng operating fund, prize fund, and charity fund. Next slide po. Next slide, please. So for first semester, Mr. Chair, we still have the same problem. If you look at the charity fund, sobrang laki po talaga ng napupunta sa documentary stamp tax. And for the information of the good chairperson and the committee po, we have appealed to the House Committee on Ways and Means, and we were graciously heeded by Congressman Joey Salceda and together with the whole committee, wherein they decided po that they will recommend once the PIPITA bill is deliberated upon sa bicameral conference committee that they will recommend the reduction of the documentary stamp tax po. However, Mr. Chair, hindi po priority bill ngayon ang PIPITA kasi ang priority bill po ay ang Bayanihan 3. So po pa rin ang ating problema kung makikita nyo po. Napakalaki po talaga ng napupuntang portion ng charity funds sa documentary stamp tax at sa totoo lang po, kami po ay nagwo-worry na sana hindi na po tumagal itong problema natin sa Delta variant para makabawi po ang PCSO more or less sa fourth quarter at makapagbigay pa po kami ng mas maraming pondo. Dito naman po sa baba, makikita nyo po iba't ibang mandatory contributions naman po ang nakaschedule ngayon 2021 compared sa 2020. So all of this, Mr. Chair, you will realize that there is an urgent need to rationalize and strategically utilize PCSO funds for health and hospitalization programs po. Kaya we are taking this occasion po, kami po ay nagsusumamo at humihingi po kami, nagmamakaawa po kaming tulungan sana kami ng Kongreso para i-review po etong aming charity fund dahil sa napakarami na po talagang mandatory contributions ng ahensya, dumagdag pa po itong pangangailangan ng universal healthcare na gusto po namin suportahan talaga ng todo-todo ito, pati ang malasakit centers. Pero hanggang hindi po na-amend or na-abolish yung ibang mandatory contributions ng PCSO, we might expect na in the coming 2 or 3 years po, baka hindi na po pwedeng bumisita ang may mga sakit nating kababayan sa aming opisina para humingi ng hospitalization assistance. So on this note, Mr. Chair, we are again reiterating our humble appeal to Congress to please come to the aid of PCSO for the rationalization of our documentary stamp tax and the rationalization of our mandatory contributions. Sabi nga po ni Presidente Duterte at ni Speaker Lord Alan Velasco, ang kailangan ngayon ay i-focus ang ating meager resources para matugunan itong mga problemang pangkalusugan, kagaya po ng COVID. Kung hindi nyo po mamasamain, ang gusto po sana ng PCSO ay mag-focus sa hospitalization, medical projects and programs. So, next slide na po. Next slide, please. Kindly press again. So, Mr. Chair, eto po, makikita po ninyo ang ating charity fund utilization. This is as of August 2021. So, kahit na po hindi natin na-hit ang ating revenue target dahil nga po dito sa varying degrees ng lockdown dahil sa COVID, nakapag-allocate na po kami ng 5.7 billion from the charity fund. And we are pleased to inform the Congress na kaka-award lang po ng contract para sa ating additional ambulance donation program. So next slide na po. Next slide, please. So Mr. Chair, ito naman po ang aming report kung paano po kami tumutulong sa nation building. So ito po ang aming taxes paid. Again, I am repeating our appeal for Congress to please look into our tax regime kasi masyado na pong affected ang ating charity fund, lalo na po sa aming 20% documentary stamp tax. And then the second is our dividends. And I'd like to inform the good committee po that the Department of Finances requested PCSO to provide an additional 1 billion as part of our dividends from the prior years to be charged against the charity fund to augment the national government's COVID response. For this reason, we are just awaiting the letter instruction or authority from the Office of the President to release this additional 1 billion for the national government's COVID response. So ito naman po yung aming binabanggit kanina na napakarami po naming mandatory contributions. Ito po ay mga Republic Acts and then executive orders. Kasama na po ang UHC, Malasakit Center. Ito po ang aming total na kinontribute para sa ating nation building. Next slide po. Next slide, please. Okay, Mr. Chair. So, as of today po, we are able to earmark 2.36 billion for the following beneficiaries. Ito pong 2.36 billion, 1 billion po dyan yung binabanggit ko kanina na yung request po ng DOF na additional 1 billion dividends from prior years charged sa charity fund for COVID response. And we were also informed by the Office of the President, ina-await lang po namin yung letter authorization na magre-release din po kami ng additional 200 million for the COVID-19 response of the Office of the President. So, nakita nyo naman po kahit mahina po ang aming ticket sales ngayon dahil nga po dito sa COVID, ginagawa po namin ang lahat ng paraan para makapag-provide pa rin tayo sa mga urgent health programs, specifically COVID response po ng national government. Next slide po. So Mr. Chair, ito naman po, just to apprise the good committee, ito po yung aming COVID response last year. So we were able to provide 1.3 billion for our aid to our Lotto and Kino agents, government hospitals. We also supported po PhilHealth on top of our contribution under the UHC. Kasi meron pong SARS standby fund na natitira ang PCSO na inaprubahan nung panahon ni dating Pangulong Arroyo at naglabas po ng EO 108 si President Duterte at inatasan po ang PCSO na i-transfer na po itong remaining balance to 420 million sa PhilHealth. And on top of that, Mr. Chair, kahit po naka-ECQ po tayo at naka-skeleton force lang po or skeletal force ang PCSO last year, we were able and we continued to provide medical assistance program po and it benefited 102,382 indigent Filipinos. And this is over and above the early release of our 2019 dividends. Ordinarily, Mr. Chair, ang mga dividendo po ng GOCCs, kagaya ng PCSO at PAGCOR, ay due for release sa National Treasury tuwing Mayo. Pero dahil nasa state of national health emergency po tayo, minabuti po ng PCSO na ilabas na agad-agaran noong March 2020 ang aming dividends for additional COVID response of the national government. Next slide po. Ito naman po, Mr. Chair, yung aming administrative support during COVID response last year, 2020. Next slide po. Mr. Chair, as stated by our chairperson and as determined also by our good general manager, the PCSO is focused on improving its revenue generation activities in the coming years. And we are pleased to inform you that we have just completed the public bidding for the PCSO lottery system, and there are ongoing initiatives to go digital and adopt the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas National Retail Payment System. Ito po yung mga Paymaya, GCash, etc., etc. The agency is also focused on introducing new and interactive online games, and for maximum revenue potential po through by improving the reach and depth of our gaming operations, we are in the process of expanding our STL operation with digital transformation. Next slide po. So again, Mr. Chair, just to summarize our report, kailangan po ng tulong ng Kongreso para matugunan yung problema po sa overburdened charity fund ng PCSO. So we would like to appeal for your intervention. And while we are very happy that the House Committee on Ways and Means promised PCSO that it will help us and lobby for the inclusion of our documentary stamp tax reduction under the PIPITA bill. However, Mr. Chair, we believe that a separate bill may be kindly considered by Congress to really once and for all rationalize the whole charity fund of PCSO. In this way po, Mr. Chair, mamamaximize po natin yung pondong nalilikom ng PCSO mula sa Lotto at STL para sa priority health and medical welfare programs po of the national government. Also, Mr. Chair, we would like to request exemption and or review, in fact, abolition of our mandatory contributions that are not health related. I think at this time po, all of us realize the importance and urgency in providing more funds for priority health programs of the national government. So with the help of the House Committee on Appropriation, together with the Committee on Games and Amusement and the Committee on Ways and Means, we hope and we pray that once again, Congress, under the able leadership of Speaker Velasco, will again come to the aid of PCSO through the rationalization po of our charity fund disbursement. Next slide po. Enter.
That's the end of the presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Attorney Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation, Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office. So the chair would now go and give the members of the committee to do their interpellation, and I would like to remind the House members that they have only a maximum of 5 minutes to do their interpellation. So we will start now with the minority. The chair would like to recognize for the minority Representative Carlos Isagani Zarate. Representative Zarate, are you online now? Please unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Chair. Medyo napatagal po ang pag-unmute from the host. Good morning, Chair, as well as the members of the Committee on Appropriation and our resource persons. Mga ilang katanungan lang po, no, sa paglilinaw sa PCSO presentation. But first, gusto ko lang i-manifest and i-caution din yung ating presenter ng PCSO. Nabanggit niya kasi kanina na she cited na ang hindi naman COVID ang pangunahin pa ring cause of morbidity, no, or ang pagkakamatay ng ating mortality, no, ng ating mga kababayan sa Pilipinas sa ngayon. I cautioned that statement, no, and I called out that statement because, Mr. Chair, sa totoo, ang problema talaga natin ngayon, it may be true in terms of numbers dahil marami namang may mga sakit pa rin talagang iba, pero what overwhelmed our healthcare system now is itong COVID-19 at hindi natin pwedeng maliitin ito, no? Just to, make a comparison na kunti lang naman pa rin ang namamatay, 30,000 pa lang. 30,000 na yung namatay sa COVID-19, Mr. Chair. So I cautioned our officials, no, especially if it relates to this kind of issue on COVID-19, because marami pong kumakalat ng mga misleading information, and it can be taken advantage of doon sa minamaliit itong kaso natin sa COVID-19 with the different variants now, especially itong Delta variant. Baka sabihin nila, narinig ko kanina sa appropriations hearing ng PCSO, sabi nila hindi naman pangunahing cause of pagkakamatay ang COVID, kaya hindi na muna ako magpabakuna, hindi na muna ako mag-take ng mga precautionary measures. So that's one point na gusto kong ilinaw, Mr. Chair, no? Dahil sa kagustuhan lang ng PCSO na yung kanilang contribution or yung mga tulong nilang pangkalusugan ay dalhin nila sa ibang kakagastahan. So that's my one point. My next question, Mr. Chair, well, it is true, no? Talagang tama 'yon na malaki ang impact nitong COVID doon sa kanilang revenues, no? Imagine in 2019, 44 billion. Ngayong 2021, for the first semester, nasa 19 billion na lang. But based on their presentation also, yung fund utilization nila is almost 6 billion lang, no? So malaki-laki rin pa rin naman, no, yung naiwan pa rin sa kanila. So ang tanong ko, Mr. Chair, with this current condition now of PCSO, is there really a possibility, no, na i-realign ninyo yung ibang pondo pa rin ninyo, no? If you have on the first semester 19 billion na yan, then based on last year's data, ang fund utilization ninyo ay nasa almost 6 billion lang as of August of 2021. Especially dito sa usapin ngayon, Mr. Chair, na napakarami pa rin nating mga kababayan na nangangailangan talaga ng tulong, no? Especially itong problema natin sa COVID-19. So may we get a reply from PCSO, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
First
you.
and
The
foremost,
chair would like to recognize from PCSO Dr. Larry Cedro to
thank you, Mr.
respond
Chairman.
to the query of Representative Zarate.
Okay. Again, thank you and good morning, Congressman Zarate. Your Honor, as regard to the earlier manifestation, we apologize. We just wanted to highlight on PCSO's efforts and contribution in so far as providing assistance to the national government to curb COVID-19. And we are one with you in providing accurate and factual data in so far as the magnitude or the threat of COVID-19 and the efforts of the government to curb the said pandemic. Mr. Chairman, as regard to the question on the performance of the agency for 2019, it was mentioned a while ago that despite the revenue target of 46.3 billion, we only realized for 19.7 billion or equal to 42%. Mr. Chair, I wish to inform the honorable members of the body that looking at the manner by which we distributed or we utilized the charity fund, aside from the fact that from the time train law was enacted in 2019, raising it to 20%, one glaring issue here is the subsequent requirement for PCSO to remit 40% of its net charity fund. As mentioned, there is a transitory provision in the law that allows PCSO for the first 2 years from the time the law was enacted to remit 50% of its 40% requirement under the 11223 law. But effectively, we are entering 2022. We will be remitting now, or we will be complying with the prescribed requirement for PCSO to remit in terms of its commitment. Hence, Mr. Chair, we view the position at this point in time with a very cautious approach, considering that we really don't know how long this pandemic would last. And we thank the national government through the IATF for its amendments insofar as the authority for PCSO to operate. But just the same, sir, we have no control. No, insofar as operation is concerned, as mentioned, we rely heavily on sales. We have in line the digital transformation. So unless we realize those amendments or those improvements in terms of operation, our charity fund will be grossly affected, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the reply from PCSO. Yes, tanggap naman din natin yung sitwasyon ngayon talaga ng PCSO, no? I'm with you doon sa inyong proposal that we really have to rationalize also itong mga pinagkakagastahan ng pondo ng PCSO. No? For example, you mentioned in the presentation doon sa documentary stamps, no, that as of August 21, 3 billion na yung binayad ninyo, more than 3 billion. But the medical assistance ay halos hindi pa nga umabot ng 1 billion at only 888 million. No? And doon sa including ang mandatory contributions nasa 708 million. No? So really, there's a need to rationalize that. No? And ano naman din, I'm with you that PCSO should also look into the other medical situations of our people, no, not only COVID-19, no, dahil marami nga sa mga kababayan natin ngayon kakasakit ng may problema sa kidney, cancer, and all the others, no, because of our sa sitwasyon din ng pangkalusugan natin sa bansa ngayon. But ang hinihiling lang natin, if there is still a room, no, elbow room for PCSO, ay kung pwede niyang madagdagan yung kanyang binibigay, no, na pondo para dito sa COVID-19 intervention, dahil ito talaga ang isa sa nagpapabigat sa ating healthcare system ngayon, Mr. Chair. No? I noticed in the presentation earlier that there was a special mention of 420 million given last year, no, for COVID-19 fund, but that was part of the bayanihan, I think bayanihan law, no? But after that, wala nang bagong provision for that, no? So yun lang naman ang ating gustong uh, mairehistro, Mr. Chair, sa PCSO, given the challenges that it also face now, no, na dwindling yung kanilang revenue. So may I get just a final reply from PCSO, and I will yield my time after that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please
As
respond.
regard to our continuing efforts to provide assistance, we wanted to assure the honorable members of this committee that PCSO did not limit itself to COVID pandemic response. We are maintaining our regular medical assistance program with emphasis to hospitalization and treatment such as chemotherapy and dialysis. We recognize that the predicament our countrymen are facing right now. Hence, with limited budget, Mr. Chair, we continue to sustain that. As regard to the question, if we could give further, as mentioned a while ago by our legislative liaison officer during the presentation, PCSO was able to provide an additional 1 billion, although in the guise of the dividends law, but then again, such fund will be utilized primarily for COVID-19 response. This is on top of the 200 million. This undertaking of the PCSO are not being published, but we are closely coordinating with other concerned agencies of the government. Mr. Chairman, allow me to let our charity sector head, AGM Juliet Aseo, to substantiate further the position of the PCSO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to what was previously explained, let me refer you to slide number 5, where we showed that the total earnings of PCSO for the first semester of 2021 is 19.6 billion, where the share of charity fund, 30%, is only 5.76 billion. And then on slide number 7, we showed that the total charity fund utilization for the first semester is 5.77 billion. This is more than the budget allotted based on the sales generated by PCSO. And notwithstanding the different illnesses being catered to by PCSO, we still extend financial and medical assistance to COVID patients. That would be all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So would Representative Zarate, would that be your last interpellation? Okay, the chair will take it as that. Next, thank you very much, Representative Zarate. Next, the chair would like to recognize for the majority, Deputy Speaker Henry Oaminal.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, my distinguished colleague and friend from the city of Zamboanga, the Honorable Dalipi, my distinguished colleagues in the House of Representatives, and our resource speakers. Mr. Chair, I would just like to ask few questions to the chairman of the PCSO or the general manager. In the previous budget hearing that we had, when we were already on the pandemic, I was asking to the general manager of the PCSO, while commending her also of her action on giving financial assistance to the different government hospitals throughout the country for the purchase of some laboratory equipment needed by the hospital in the fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. In the presentation of the PCSO General Manager, it appears that Mars Medical Center, which is a government referral hospital here in my district, the second district of Misamis Occidental, and while this hospital is located in my district, but it is catering patients not only throughout the province of Misamis Occidental, but also its neighboring provinces like the province of Zamboanga del Norte, the Zamboanga del Sur, and that of Lanao del Norte. It appears in the multi-millions assistance extended by the PCSO that Mars was not included. And when I raised that question, the GM politely answered that Mars was not included because there was no pending request from the hospital, which according to my chief of hospital, they were not also informed that PCSO will be giving such huge financial assistance to the government hospital for the pandemic. So that in the later part of the discussion, the general manager promised to us that Mars will be included and a priority of the next release from the PCSO. So may I know from our PCSO resource speaker, I could see here our good friend, the very respected chairman of the PCSO, General Pinili, on when will be the time or whether our hospital now could get the share for laboratory equipment for this COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Chair, may we hear the response from the PCSO?
The chair would like to recognize from PCSO the OIC General Manager, Cedro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Your Honor. As regard to your question, um, allow us, Mr. Chair, to evaluate and to revisit the list. We announced earlier during the presentation that we indeed maintain the provision of needed equipment in some hospitals. But considering, Mr. Chairman, that I did not bring with us the necessary data, but we will see to it that within the day we will be able to provide the information. And as what our chairman, our GM rather, manifested during the last appropriations hearing, we still maintain that commitment that we shall provide the necessary facility improvement, particularly an equipment for the said institution, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
while I
DS
thank
Oaminal.
the response of the PCSO, may I need a categorical answer whether this year Mars is already included, and if it is included, how much is the allocation extended for Mars? Because I understand in the previous years, last 2020, there were government hospitals which they were able to receive an assistance ranging from 20 to 50 million pesos. And considering that Mars is not only a 500 beds capacity, but it is now 1,000 beds capacity, and it is the only COVID referral facility in the area, catering 3 or 4 provinces. So may we need a categorical answer? How much, if it is included, and if it is included, how much is the amount allocated for Mars Medical Center located here in the city of Osamis, province of Misamis Occidental?
Okay, before the OIC General Manager Cedro will respond to the query of Deputy Speaker Oaminal, I'd like to remind all interpellators that you have a maximum of 5 minutes. So for Deputy Speaker Oaminal, you have a few more seconds left. So OIC General Manager Cedro, please respond to the query of Deputy Speaker Oaminal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, as regard to your request for a categorical statement, we would like to manifest that indeed we have the budget for such a program, the equipment donation program. What I cannot make a concrete or a definite position is that we have to verify first the degree of compliance of the requesting hospital. As aside from the documentary requirements, there are requirements also that would require clearance, particularly from the Department of Health. But what I can say, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor, is that we will see to it that we will come up with a definitive position as to its status, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, no.
For
I have only
your
one question
last
in that 5 minutes.
question, Deputy Speaker Oaminal,
Yes,
one more.
Mr. Chair, I don't need to consume the 5 minutes, but again, the answer is not very definite on the issue that I raised. But for purposes of today's, Mr. Chair, may I just request the OIC General Manager, no, to give to us their contact number so that we can make a follow through with him after this budget hearing today, so as not to leave us hanging with that kind of answer, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Uh,
No
can
problem,
we?
Deputy Speaker Raminal. I will instruct the committee secretariat to provide you the contact details of the officials, particularly the OIC General Manager of PCSO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. OIC General Manager, and to PCSO Chairman General Pinili. And uh, in order to come up with the best result of this today's discussion, so we would appreciate that we can get your number ASAP to the secretary so that we can make a follow-up with you after this budget hearing. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues, and good morning again.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker Raminal. OIC General Manager Cedro, please get in touch with Deputy Speaker Henry Ominal to clearly state the position of PCSO with regards to his query. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, we will do that.
Thank you very much. Next, the chair would like to recognize for the majority, Representative VG Laxson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. Few questions lang po. In light of the mandate of the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes to raise and provide funds for health programs and medical assistance and services, I would like to ask the good chairperson Pinili and GM Garma the status of the procurement of the patient transport vehicles, mga ambulance po, to be given to pertinent local government units, mga LGU, that will be used to deliver basic health services and promote the general welfare of the people. Ano po yung status ng procurement natin, Mr.
OIC
Chair?
General Manager Cedro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, we are pleased to inform you that the procurement course through public bidding conducted by the Bids and Awards Committee of the PCSO resulted to an award to supply 300 units of PTV or patient transport vehicles for distribution. We are in the process of, Mr. Chair, the documentary requirements, particularly the posting of the performance bond, I think it is now in the pipeline. And there is a subsequent signing of the necessary contract and the notice to proceed. On the part of the PCSO, Mr. Chair, we really wanted to have those units delivered ASAP in order for us to distribute the same, recognizing the needs of our local government units or government instrumentalities in the performance of their functions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
OICGM.
Mr.
Representative Laxson, for your follow-up question.
Yes. First, thank you dun sa information na binigay niyo. Yeah, and appreciate it dahil kailangan natin itong mga ambulance na to. Especially now dahil dun sa COVID, ang daming nagre-request ng ambulance services. Okay. For the second question, in the midst of the pandemic uh, due to COVID-19, I would like to ask uh, the good agency to kindly inform this chamber or enumerate the PCS effort in helping the national government to succeed to the crisis due to the coronavirus. Can you elaborate on this, yung mga efforts natin to help in the pandemic?
Thank you, Mr.
OIC General Manager, please respond
Thank,
to the query of Representative Laxson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Um, Your Honor, I just would like to go back to the presentation made a while ago to highlight what PCSO contributed to address the COVID-19 pandemic. For 2020, we readily responded to finance, no, or to provide funds in the amount of 420 million at the outset, and then we maintain the provision of financial support to government hospitals, particularly 52 government hospitals, worth 447 million. We also provided not only for our workforce, for our individuals, but also the welfare of our partners. And we sustain, Mr. Chairman, the provision of services to our fellow men, not limited to the COVID-19 pandemic, but to other health-related concerns they raised before us. Also, we did not stop from there, Mr. Chair. As mentioned earlier, the DOF requested PCSO to provide further financial assistance. As such, the board readily approved the release of the financial assistance worth 1 billion as part of our dividends, which will be turned over to the national government. And aside from that, Mr. Chair, we have allocated 200 million for COVID response. Both activities, Mr. Chair, we wish to clarify and inform the honorable members of the board of the committee that insofar as the 1 billion assistance, we are still waiting for the approval by the Office of the President. While for the 200 million assistance, we are still waiting for the approval of the supplemental budget by the Department of Budget and Management. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Uh,
GM.
Thank you for the answer, GM Garma. With that answer, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, this humble public servant would like to manifest my sincerest appreciation and support to the PCSO, especially to Chairperson Pinili and GM Garma, to their untiring effort in fighting this crisis and helping our people. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Virilio VG Laxson. Next, the chair would like to recognize for the majority, Representative Diego T.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning po, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative Diego T, please proceed with your interpellation.
Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Chair, it was reported earlier by the representative of PCSO, Attorney Gay Albor, that our target and our actual income is very low compared to the target, Mr. Chairman. particularly with STL, Mr. Chair. Maybe one of the reasons for this, Mr. Chair, is that the operators were underreporting their monthly income. So, Mr. Chairman, my first question is that, may I know, Mr. Chairman, how much is the guaranteed minimum monthly retail receipt of the authorized agent of Misamis Occidental, Mr. Chairman?
OIC General Manager of PCSO.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I request a few minutes? I'll just check the file, sir. Mr. Chairman, for the province of Misamis Oriental,
I think
Occidental.
Misamis Occidental, Miss Oc.
my apologies, sir. Okay, Mr. Chairman, sorry. For Misamis Occidental, excluding Cagayan, no, so Occidental itself, the GMMR, Mr. Chairman, is 15,530,450 pesos.
Mr. Chairman, I've been asking in my municipality, the municipality of Plaridel, ang sagot po ng mga coordinators, we averages 150,000 pesos sales per day. That is around 4.5 million pesos per month for one municipality alone. If we multiply that by 17 cities and municipalities of Misamis Occidental, Mr. Chairman, the actual sales could have been around 77 million pesos, yet the declared sales is only, as mentioned, is only 15.5 million pesos, Mr. Chairman. So, may I know, Mr. Chairman, what is the formula for the minimum sales of the PCSO, Mr. Chairman, so that we can compute this. How much is the really actual cost, Mr. Chairman? May I know the formula, Mr. Chair, of the PMRR or projected minimum sales?
GM Cedro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, as regard to your question on the formula being applied by PCSO, may I refer the honorable members of this committee to the 2020 RIRR, which was approved by the Office of the President. Under the said IRR, the PMMRR is derived by computing 30% of the voting population multiplied by the minimum bet per day, further multiplied on the number of days or 30 days, Mr. Chair. So that's how we arrive at the PMMRR, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Diego T.
the registered voter of Misamis Occidental is 408,000 pesos a persons. If we multiply the, Mr. Chair, with the 30% as mentioned, multiplied by 30 days, multiplied by a minimum of 10 pesos per day, that's already 37 million, Mr. Chairman. And their projected income is only 15%. My point is, Mr. Chairman, maybe we are short-changed by the operators. In fact, the mayors are complaining, Mr. Chair. In my municipality, the gross sales is 44.5 million and we are only receiving 15,000 per month. 15,000 per month for the 4.5 million sales. Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the PCSO to please investigate on this. My second question, Mr. Chairman, is that the operators, Mr. Chair, are using the Suertres National Game Draw results as basis for their numbers combination, Mr. Chair. A violation of the Section 19, Paragraph F of STL, IRR that states it shall not use any lotto or any PCSO national game draw result. Mr. Chair, may I ask again the leadership of PCSO to please investigate the STL operation of Misamis Occidental. And lastly, Mr. Chair, there is a confusion. Who is the real authorized agent of Misamis Occidental? May I know from the PCSO, Mr. Chair? Sino ba talaga ang authorized agent ng Misamis Occidental?
Uh, Representative Diego T. authorized
Agent or the operator of STL in Misamis
of
Occidental?
STL.
Mr.
GM
Chair,
Cedro.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, for the AAC, no, given authority to operate in the province of Misamis Occidental, it is under STL Donnell Philippines Corporation, Mr. Chair. As to the position or the manifestation made by the Honorable T, sir, we would like to inform you that we are with you. As a matter of fact, as part of our trust for 2022, but we will no longer wait for 2022. We are now in the process of crafting or finishing the guidelines for the full automation of our betting system, not only for other games, but also for STL. This is in our desire to account accurately the amount of revenues being generated by our AAC in the area of operation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Thank you
Chairman,
very
Mr.
much,
Chairman,
GM Diego T, for your final interpellation.
yes, Mr. Chairman, the reality on the ground, Mr. Chairman, the mentioned Donnell Corporation is no longer the STL operators here. And Mr. Chair, if please, may I ask the PCSO to investigate further so that they can uncover the sad truth on who are the real operators here, Mr. Chair. And unfortunately, Mr. Chair, some of them are political personalities, Mr. Chair. So therefore, Mr. Chair, may I ask again this committee and PCSO to give a full investigation of the operation of Misamis Occidental STL, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to get a hard copy for their reply, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Thank you very much, Representative Diego T. We hear you loud and clear. I know that the general manager and the other officials of PCSO will seriously take note of the grievances, particularly your observations made for your area, the province of Misamis Occidental. So GM Cedro and the other PCSO officials, please take note of that. So next we go on to the next interpellator. The chair would like to recognize Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Benny Abante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, Deputy Speaker Abante, we can hear you loud and clear. Please proceed.
Salamat po. Okay, now, my first question would be this. No, under the PCSO Charter, Republic Act 1169, Section 6, it says, thereof provided for the disposal of his cross receipts, where 6.5% was allocated to the provinces and cities. Ito po ang nakalagay sa batas. Ang tanong ko po sa inyo ngayon ay ito ba'y sinusunod ninyo o hindi po ito nasusunod?
PCSO? Who would?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I refer the matter to our finance head and subsequently our legal officer, who's in Zoom right now. But first, may I refer it to our financial officer.
Who would respond or on behalf of PCSO?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, GM
Your
Cedro.
Honor, Congressman, Deputy Speaker Abante, allow us some time. We will get back to you. We'll just verify, sir, the data that was shared to me a while ago. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Speaker Benny Abante, PCSO would like to have more time. They are trying to verify the information they would like to relay to you. Do you
Okay,
have
meanwhile,
another?
I'd like to ask the second question. No?
Yes, please
Um,
proceed.
uh, Totoo po ba na naglabas kayo ng Implementing Rules and Regulations, IRR, ng Republic Act 1169 noong 2016, kung saan nakasaad doon, the gross receipts derived from the small town lottery are allocated to the LGUs as follows, where the share of cities, municipalities was reduced to 3%, congressional districts to 0.25%, and the provinces was drastically reduced to 0.75% of the 29.40% net charity fund, as can be gleaned from Section 394. Oo, thereof, no?
Oh.
I think that you know that, di ba? So, bakit ito po IRR ninyo ay medyo salungat yata at malayo sa itinatagda ng batas na dapat shares ng LGU na 6.5% mula sa gross receipts. Bakit po kaya?
Thank you, Mr.
GM
Chairman.
Cedro.
Your Honor, in response, we just want to clarify that insofar as RA 1169, there's no accompanying IRR released by the agency to that effect. As regard to the contribution or the revenue allocation, we have primarily the 2020 RIRR for the small town lottery. Notwithstanding executive order, what's that? The executive order issued by then President Ramos determining the allocation on the local government units for municipalities and cities. But to further elucidate the manner of
When was that? When was that, Mr. Chair?
Your Honor, as I mentioned, insofar as the STLRIRR, this was approved in 2020. The Office of the President
Okay.
issued the approval in October of 2020. The executive order I'm referring to, Mr. Chair, is EO 357 and further amended by EO 357A. This is with regard to the allocation of the local government units on the sales generated through our lotto games, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Chair,
Yes, DS
let me
Abante.
interject now. So there is no implementing rules and regulations of RA 1169 in 2016. Wala.
Mr. Chairman, there's none.
There's not. Okay.
Allowed to
Okay.
implement.
So, okay. Kung wala, how come that the shares of the LGUs have been drastically reduced? Were they reduced?
Mr.
GM
Chairman?
Cedro.
Okay, Your Honor, as I've mentioned, sir, the revenue allocation and the manner of assistance we provide are based primarily on executive orders, as I've mentioned, 357 and 357A, and the STL. So meaning, when we talk of a particular game source, let's say STL, the prevailing rule will be that of the STL RIR. And for our lotto games, be it the digit games or the jackpot games, Mr. Chair, the prevailing rule there will be EO 357 and 357A. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
matanong ko lang
DS
po,
Abante.
magkano pa ang gross receipts ng PCSO mula sa STL every year?
Mr. Chairman,
You have said,
allow me to refer the matter to our branch operation sector AGM Lauro Patiag, Mr. Chair.
okay, the chair would like to recognize AGM Patiag to respond to the query of Deputy Speaker Abante. Gross
Good morning, Mr.
receipts
Chair.
of STL.
We have an average of 1.8 billion, Mr. Chair, monthly, or the guaranteed monthly retail receipts of all AECs.
Come again,
Okay.
AGM Patiag.
When was that? Please repeat.
Mr. Chairman, average 1.8 billion
Every year.
every month.
1.8 billion.
Every month. Every month. So average, estimate average every year would be how much? More than 20 billion.
More than 22 billion. That's correct, Mr. Chair.
More than 22 billion. Okay. So, Mr. Chair, as you said a moment ago that you were following the IRR of 2020, am I right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Sa ilalim ng inyong IRR, ay kailangan mag-remit ng shares ng kita ang mga STL operators. So, anong percentage ng kita nila ang dapat nila i-remit sa PCSO?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, currently we are governed by the latest Office of the President approved STL IRR that was made effective last November 2020, November 18, 2020. And the revenue allocation for that, Mr. Chair, is we have this breakdown for the AEC, our authorized agent corporation, and also breakdown of the details of share for the PCSO. For AEC, Mr. Chair, we have 47.7050% of the total, and that is equivalent to, if I may, we'll proceed with the breakdown. Share of AEC is 10%, commission of the sales force 10%, share of the sales agent o yung pong ating tinatawag na kabo, and then total po niyan is 31 net price fund 31.205%, and that's the total income of the AEC 51.2050%, Mr. Chair. But we are deducting the withholding taxes for remittance, and that's 1.5 for the expanded withholding tax, the VAT withholding tax from the agency commission of 0.5%, and then 1% for the expanded withholding tax from the sales force commission, and the VAT withholding tax from the sales force commission, again, it's 0.5%. So the total withholding tax, Mr. Chair, is equivalent to 3.5%, and therefore the net AEC share is 47.7050%, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can you submit the documents that you have just mentioned to the committee, for us to be able to see? Okay.
Yes. No problem. The chair would like to instruct the committee secretariat to source the documents being requested by Deputy Speaker Abante and furnish his office copies of such.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you based that on the executive order of the President, am I right?
For the STL, as stated by the OIC GM Cedro, Mr. Chair, the STL is governed by the IRR approved by the Office of the President last year. The executive order is pertinent to Lotto operations, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, you said that it is governed by the IRR that PCSO has actually approved. Am I right? So ibig sabihin yan, Mr. Chair, walang batas. IRR lang.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chair. The law itself, the creating PCSO 1169, RA 1169, mandates that PCSO should craft the implementing rules and regulations for its games and
Have
in
you-
compliance.
Have you submitted the IRR that you have actually approved to the committee? Can you please submit that also? We'd like to see the IRR,
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will do that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Deputy Speaker Abante.
Okay, let me ask. Very, very important question. Paano ninyo na-check kung tama ang nire-remit ng mga operators sa inyo? Are you able to monitor that and you're able to really check it kung tama?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have actually 70 branch offices all over the country, and each branch office has the direct responsibility of monitoring the sales and remittance of our agent corporation, and these are being monitored daily, Mr. Chairman. The
Okay,
sales report, yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you still
Yes,
have words,
Abante.
no? Hindi po ba pinahinto dati ni President Duterte ang operations ng STL dahil hindi nagre-remit ng tama ang mga local operators? So, kamusta na ngayon ang mga remittances?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. That was before, but when the president authorized the resumption of our STL gains, now all of our STL AECs are compliant. They have been remitting religiously their the so-called GMRR, the monthly allocation po nila, sales, and these are being monitored daily, Mr. Chairman. Except for one which we have already terminated last March, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I was
Yes,
told
Deputy
that
Speaker Abante.
in your IRR, ibinaba ninyo ang shares ng mga probinsya to 0.020%. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, we'll check.
AGM
I'll
Patiag.
check my. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to the latest allocation for the charity fund, the share of the municipality is equivalent to city or municipality is equivalent to 1.7643% of the STL charity fund. On the other hand, the provincial government is receiving 0.7057% of the total STL charity fund generated from the respective area of jurisdiction or locality, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr.
Thank you
Chair,
for
as
that
you can
response,
see,
AGM
that even
Patiag. Before the next question of Deputy Speaker Abante, I'd like to remind him of the 5-minute rule as agreed by the members of the committee. And you still have a few more seconds left. Please proceed, Deputy Speaker Abante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, well, as you can see, even if I am a Manila congressman, I'm taking the cudgel of the remittances and the share of the provinces, because that's very, very important, particularly in the pandemic time, no? So, sa kasalukuyan, Mr. Chair, siguro ito na lang ang aking maaaring itanong. Paano po ang sharing na ginagawa ninyo para sa mga LGUs mula sa gross receipts ng STL kada taon?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
our revenue
AGM
allocation as approved,
Patiag.
as approved by our board of directors and pursuant to the IRR. Meron po yung the allocation as I have mentioned, the monthly, it is being allocated monthly, yun po sa municipality or city and the provincial government. So these are being released directly to the local government unit concerned through the respective treasurer's office based on their sales of their AEC.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I just would like to manifest as I end my interpellation na ang mga operators ng STL are private entities doing business in a city or municipality. Hindi sila extension o agents ng PCSO dahil may sarili silang corporate personality. Sa ilalim ng 1991 Local Government Code, Sections 447 and 458, lahat ng may business sa isang LGU ay kailangang kumuha ng mayor's permit or local business permit. Now, do you follow that rule? That's my last question, no? Do you follow that rule o hindi na kinakailangan pang kumuha ng mayor's permit ang mga operators na STL? Basta't meron kayong approval.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'd like
Yes,
to
AGM,
clarify the
Patiag.
first statement made by Congressman Abante. In fact, our agent corporation, our AEC, are our sales agents. They are acting for and in behalf of PCSO, and therefore they are authorized agent corporation or under the law on agency. So they are just limited for the selling of our tickets and the settlement of prices pursuant to the agreement that we have signed with them and pursuant also to the IRR. Yung pong as regards the requirement of the business permit, this is similar to our lotto, where lotto agents are not required pursuant also to the decision of the Supreme Court. When agents of PCSO, whether that's lotto or sweepstakes, are not required to secure business permit or licenses. We have, but in the case of STL, which we maintain the same rules should be applied, we are encouraging our agent corporation to secure the business permit with the respective LGUs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, AGM Patiag.
I still believe, though, Mr. Chair, that the STL operators should secure business permits at the LGU. Yun lang po ang gusto kong sabihin, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Benny Abante. Next, the Chair would like to recognize the next interpellator for the majority, Representative Hector Sanchez.
Good morning, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
morning, Representative Hector Sanchez. Please proceed with your interpellation.
Yes, do you hear me loud and clear, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all our colleagues and to all the resource person. We all know that PCSO, this agency's contribution to the government has a very vital role in fighting COVID-19 related to any expenditures, as well as to our Malasakit Center. We thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Now, my question is, how much is your agency is losing in terms of annual target revenues due to the slowing down of your operations because of the pandemic, Mr. Chairman?
Your Honor, Mr.
OIC
Chairman.
General Manager.
Thank you.
Yes.
Your Honor, as regard to the question, I would like to highlight the current year, 2021, wherein the target revenue is was pegged at 46.3 B, but as reported as of June 2021, we were able to attain only 42%. This was brought about by the series of declarations made by the IATF and the local government unit, the different local government units in response to quarantine classifications. It took us a while, Mr. Chairman, particularly May of 2021, wherein PCSO was able to secure the necessary approval from the IATF to maintain its operation even under modified enhanced community quarantine or MECQ. And this is now being retained in the latest omnibus guidelines as of August 19, 2021. Our point, Mr. Chairman, is that with the continuing suspension of operation will drastically affect the performance of the agency, considering that we have yet to implement full automation. Our lotto outlets are, although electronically being attended to, would still require physical presence. And with the imposition of localized lockdown, would actually require local individuals, no, to limit their movements. Hence, despite authority to operate under MECQ, we noticed that there's a depleted amount of revenues raised during the same period. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Representative Sanchez.
yes, however, PCSO, you have your mandates under the Public Act 1169 to post through your operations. Ang tanong po paano nyo magagawa ng paraan na tuloy-tuloy ang suporta po sa ating mamamayan? Mr. Speaker.
OIC General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, despite the situation we're in right now, PCSO was able to provide the necessary assistance as highlighted in our first semester accomplishment report. We were able to continuously provide the necessary assistance to individuals, not only of COVID-related cases, but of other health-related concerns. We were able to provide or set aside the necessary funds for COVID pandemic response, particularly, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, we've set aside 1 billion for this year and another 200 million. We're just awaiting for the necessary clearances from the Office of the President and that of the DBM. And we assure the honorable members of this committee and the general public as well that despite the challenges that we are facing right now, we remain committed and we remain positive that we will be able to provide assistance to all who are in need. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, OICGM. Representative Sanchez for your follow-up question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My province is Catanduanes, is an island, and we are very happy because Senator Bongo have just inaugurated our Malasakit Center. May I know, Mr. Chairman, for this year, how much is your allocation for our ABMC hospital? Or even maybe a simple ambulance, because this is a very important to my province. May we know that, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, may
Yes.
I refer the matter to our AGM for Charity Sector, AGM Juliet Aser. Thank you.
The Chair would like to recognize AGM Aseo.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. May I ask the good congressman if the necessary requests have been submitted to PCSO already?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have been requesting many times for the ambulance. But the Malasakit Center allocation, we have just inaugurated last week. That's why we are also asking for that allocation, Mr. Chairman.
With regard po dun sa ambulance, as mentioned earlier, we have just finished the bidding of the PTVs and we are awaiting for the award of the contract to the winning bidder. We have yet to finalize the list of recipients, maybe this coming September, and we will inform the recipients of the necessary decision of the board once they have finalized the list of recipients.
Thank you very much, AGM Maseo.
Mr. Chairman,
Congressman
last,
Sanchez.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I know the assurance of the ambulance that you're going to allocate in my province?
AGM Maseo,
Assurance?
can you give that assurance that the ambulance for the province of Catanduanes will really be allocated as requested by the distinguished gentleman from Catanduanes?
Mr. Chair, I can only assure that once all required documents are submitted to PCSO, the matter will be taken into consideration by the PCSO Board of Directors.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, may we know the contact number of the PCSO official so that we can easily have a communication with them? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
no problem, Representative Hector Sanchez. The COMSEC will provide you with the necessary details you need, particularly the contact numbers of our very good officials of PCSO. So thank you very
Thank you,
much,
thank you.
Representative Hector Sanchez. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Mark Go.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much. Uh, can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang umaga po sa ating pong mga kasama sa Kongreso and our resource persons from the PCSO. I would like to ask the specific peso value of the shares as mandated by the various agencies of government, Mr. Chair, from our presenter earlier. You stated here, like, for example, the share of the mandatory share of, let's say, the Commission on Higher Education is 13%. How much is that annually? Can we ask the PCSO, Mr. Chair?
To respond, OIC General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, to provide you with specifics as regard to the mandatory contributions, allow me to read the data, sir. For sports development program, we were able to provide 359,672 pesos and 7 centavos. For the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, PCSO was able to provide 35,593,098 pesos and 60 centavos. For the National Museum Act, Mr. Chair, it's 50 million pesos. For the Commission on Higher Education, it's 119,439,513 pesos. And the share of local government units, this would cover everything, Mr. Chair, it amounted to 179,718,350 pesos and 20 centavos. And finally, Mr. Chair, for the universal health care, we've allocated, based on the requirement set for PCSO, the amount of 545,782,959 pesos and 76 centavos, for a total contribution for the mandatory contributions, Mr. Chair, of 930,893,590. Thank you.
Thank you. OIC GM,
Mr. Chair,
Representative Marco.
this is before the COVID or during this COVID, Mr. Chair.
OIC GM.
The release would speak of the calendar year 2020. So we're already in the midst of the pandemic, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And
Congressman Marco.
you are saying that this is about 13% of the total charity fund utilization of PCSO. Is that correct, Mr. Chair? Distinguished resource person?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
OICGM.
that is correct.
Representative Go.
Having said that, Mr. Chair, having said that, Mr. Resource Person, you are requesting this congressional body to exempt you or even lower probably the documentary stamps on the winning of our bettors. Right now, our existing law, it's 20%, and you are asking how many percent? 10%. How much is that if in case this will be approved? How much in terms of peso amount will this probably save PCSO? Mr. Chair, Honorable Resource Person.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
OICGM.
Allow me, sir, to provide a figure for 2020 alone, Mr. Chair. For documentary stamp tax, no, we've paid 2,090,899,180. That is in compliance with the 20% increase of the DST. Our appeal, Mr. Chair, as manifested a while ago by our resource person, is that Congress should consider realigning the trust of the PCSO to be consistent with its mandate, which is primarily the agency of the government to raise funds for health-related programs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Go.
Yeah, well, I'm asking, so you are saying if the documentary stamps will be reduced to 10%, instead of paying in 2020 2 billion, you will only be paying about 1 billion.
Mr. Chairman,
is that correct, Honorable Resource Person?
OICGM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To be honest and candid about it, it would be in the favor of PCSO, because that will redound now to services. But as regard to the percentage decrease, should Congress consider, we leave the matter to the honorable members of the Congress in determining the appropriate reduction, should there be any. But we would like to emphasize that our appeal, for Congress to reconsider its position as regard to the train law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're asking for a reduction of these taxes collected by the national government because you are saying you are bleeding. Now, I don't see any reason why you should be bleeding, considering that your main charter is not to be profitable to the extent that it will be beyond your main charter, is to provide services to our people once you earn this income from all these bets that will be made by our people in the country. You are just doing fine. The only main problem that you have right now is because of the pandemic. The funds you generated is lower than what you expected or what you had before. But truly, you are helping the country. And as you said earlier, the charter of PCSO, while it's basically to help yung mga people with medical cases, it has enlarged your responsibility by including support to non-health related cases, even including education, because CHED is receiving a big chunk of your charity fund utilization. It's 13%. And you have the national, the NCCA, it's getting a big chunk also of your charity fund utilization. So you are just doing okay. You know, you you are helping a bigger, a broader sector of our country. Don't you think you don't need anything to, you know, anyway, the dog stamp goes to the government, to the national government.
OACGM, Cedro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Honor, we thank you for making that observation. We really appreciate the message that you conveyed to PCSO. But just the same, Mr. Chair, we're doing good as of now, but we want to do better to live up to our mandate, Mr. Chair. Um, as of now, as presented earlier, the moment the contribution being mandated for PCSO to provide the national government will increase, particularly the eventual compliance of PCSO to the full 40% of the net charity fund. We are reminded of other obligations. We call it obligations primarily because it's mandated by law. And we welcome the thought, should you pursue, to reconsider to remove from PCSO its obligation for non-health related. We have nothing against them. It's just that we wanted to concentrate more and to live up with our mandate, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Marco, would that be your last question? You have already consumed your 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, because I have another bill actually that will be discussed on Tuesday in the Committee on Ways and Means. And we need the support of PCSO with our bill on the creation of the autonomous region of the Cordillera. So having said that, I think we will discuss this further in the Committee on Ways and Means with, of course, I'm sure the PCSO will be there during this committee hearing. So again, thank you very much, honorable resource persons and chair. Maraming po salamat at magandang umaga po.
Thank you very much, the distinguished gentleman from Baguio City. Next, the chair would like to recognize Representative Ria Robes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Congrida Robes, and I'd like from the city of San Jose del Monte. First, I'd like to make my manifestation that I support all the activities of the PCSO, but may I request to my kababayan, Sir Larry, who's been helping us for the longest time, that you might want to consider that there was a promise 4 years ago for our Ospital ng Lungsod ng San Jose del Monte, considering that we have 1.6 million in population, a very heavily populated area, wherein most of the relocation sites are being established, and actually it was all here since Marcos' time and still continuing. And second, I'd like to also make a follow-up with the ambulance and of course the help desk that we were talking about na naputol po because of this pandemic. I pretty understand that you are really mandated to help charitable institution, an institution or government agencies that could really work very hand in hand with the local government unit. And I just hope that what I have said has been heard. I will be sending my letter to you again, and probably you could consider again our district. Again, maraming salamat, and let us all pray very hard that you continue your mandate in helping the Filipino people, especially the poverty, the less fortunate people, and also thank you for the Malasakit Center because we will have it soon in our district. Maraming salamat po. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Bria Robes of San Jose del Monte. So, considering that we have already called on all our interpellators, we would like to end this briefing already, and we would like to thank Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office. This country needs you now more than ever, especially in this time of pandemic. Kailangan talaga, if there is really a need to review the collection being remitted by the different agents you have authorized, please do so, because we really need to source more funds to help our people in this COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you very much, Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, OIC General Manager Larry Cedro, and the other officials of PCSO. Send our regards to the General Manager who is on leave now, GM Garma. So thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. So the Chair would now uh, terminate the briefing of PCSO, and this committee hearing of the Committee on Appropriations is suspended. We'd like to remind the members of the House of Representatives that particularly the Committee on Appropriation, we will resume the hearing at 1 p.m.